Hey folks, this is RRPG here, and I'm here to present another 2 cents video on the 2 cents block for you all. And for today's video, I'm kind of feeling a bit agitated, as I really need to raise another point about how this industry is falling so badly. In my last video, I mentioned that one of the biggest pandemics in the video game industry is the intolerable amount of fanboy wars going on the internet and in our modern culture. It is just as bad as third parties sinking low with their petty practices and what they try to do to survive without acknowledging all sides of the competition. Fanboy wars is nothing but a crappy movement that has stemmed off after the console wars between Nintendo and Sega during the 90s, and now that war has continued with the likes of Nintendo, Sony, and Microsoft. You want to know something that is really funny about all of this? While there are nut-hugging fanboys yelling at each other for saying that their pieces of plastic are more sexy than the other, the higher-ups of companies like Nintendo, Sony, and Microsoft are actually friends to each other. That is not a joke. But don't take my word for it. Take a look back about some time ago when Shuhei Yoshida claimed that he currently owns 2 Wii U's, and even has a Nintendo Network account with some Miiverse posts to prove that. Not only that, he claimed that Nintendo is a very integral part of the life within the gaming industry, and them not changing or even falling from grace would be very detrimental to the growth of gaming's evolution. Another example is that Shuhei Yoshida complimenting Phil Spencer just recently, with him working on bringing back the Xbox division to its former glory, where games are what makes a console, not features or even a piece of plastic that deals with motion movements from your body onto a camera. The final nail in the coffin was when Microsoft's Aaron Greenberg going to have drinks with Adam Boyce from Sony during Gamescom. I also believe that Shigeru Miyamoto was trying out Oculus Rift during E3 where he wanted to test and see how that was, and it showed his respect and interest in wanting to try it out. So as you can see, they are the ones that are acting the most mature, while there are people who are attached to each side of the industry who are throwing hatred and fear amongst each other and those who wish to not have a part of that child's play. And it only got worse after the 6th generation of gaming up until now. I've seen from comments on forums from NeoGAF and gaming websites thrashing at people for saying why their consoles are better than the other. You know who you are, and these are the things I'm talking about. These comments are inexcusable. I know there's a thing called personal preference, but I also believe that there is a thing called integrity and respect. Fanboys have done nothing but having others from other preferences call each other names like Play Slaves, Nintendrones, and Xbots. You claim that competition comes from the fallacy of something like that, well you are sorely mistaken, as that is nothing more than immature scrutinization and not the true meaning of competition. Competition is where first parties get their games and hardware sold in numbers from doing all sorts of things like having their own games, exclusives from third parties, or having certain features like party chat and online play, just so that their install bases can increase for everybody to be happy, not by verbal rants. Some might say that Sega did verbal rants toward Nintendo when it came to their commercials with the Sega Genesis Mega Drive, but that was more on the level of professionalism where they weren't thrashing verbal excuses for Nintendo's platforms and their games like what many of you are doing right now. I like to see strong quality titles from first and third party companies strive on all systems, because that creates better competition where our insatiable appetite for something new in gaming will always be a tremendous one. Even stuff like exclusivity shouldn't even be considered a bane amongst those who are more of an avid gamer on their preferred platforms, as it only adds more fuel to the fire in this war against fanboys on the internet. And you have people who make you feel like a total fool of yourselves when they know that fanboy wars are extremely petty while they do their own crap that isn't even right. Rise of the Tomb Raider has pissed off so many people because of it being an exclusive on the Xbox platforms, while Bayonetta 2 and Devil's Third are exclusive on the Wii U. You want to play those games? Buy an Xbox One and a Wii U because you are not helping matters at all. I have a Wii U because I want to play exclusive games like Bayonetta 2 and Devil's Third. I have a PlayStation Vita because of certain games like Tales of Hearts R that I really want to play. I plan on getting an Xbox One when Scalebound releases, and I pick up other games like Killer Instinct that I wanted to play for quite some time. I have a 3DS because of exclusive games that are on there, and I have a PlayStation 4 waiting for the next big exclusive that will hit big on the system. Exclusivity does matter, but why it's a bane to you for being stuck on your own piece of plastic is ridiculous. If you want those games, then buy the platforms they are coming onto, because this high plead for multi-platform only creates further problems for companies when it comes to the development costs and the probability of low sales numbers. And yes, I blame the Nintendo fanboys for not supporting third parties because of the low sales numbers of games like Assassin's Creed and Splinter Cell, but I still blame third parties for not trying to have quality titles on the Wii U, as it is more of a double-edged sword on this kind of thing. Now, I know there are plenty of people like Butterworthy who wish for the best when it comes to the competition of Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo, and I do as well, because I want to see all three sides have their own games as well as many exclusives and third-party games that you can play on anything. That's what it means for us winning as gamers, because we are actually playing those games from the different platforms. Remember when I said that Nintendo and Sega had mature competition when they had their own little race? Well, this ain't any different, Jack. I remember reading an article with Phil Spencer claiming that the fanboyism between sides has really gotten out of hand, as they have lost the real meaning of what competition is supposed to be. And I agree with him, as I'm sure that people like Satoru Iwata and Shuhei Yoshida don't doubt him on his comment. As long as there are those who use the internet and social networks like Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube who spread their fanboyism like an idiotic child, that is just plain wrong. This is not just from those who aren't big in the social networks, but it also equates to YouTube partners like Angry Joe as well. I got a newsflash for all of you, including those who show bias toward each other, even for those who show disrespect to my two good friends, K-Wing and K-Wife. We are gamers. We aren't dictators on what should be or not be on a console or handheld, because that is reducing competition and not increasing it. I may be pro Nintendo when it comes to my content, but I do acknowledge and respect both Sony and Microsoft for many of the feats they accomplished when it came to gaming. But I also agree with many others that they pulled off some stupid crap as well as Nintendo, and they are continuing to make pros and cons in their business cultures. I wouldn't own a PlayStation 4 or PlayStation Vita if it wasn't for some of the compelling games that the platforms have up their sleeve. And I probably wouldn't agree to buy an Xbox One if something like Scalebound and other exclusives like Dead Rising 3 and Killer Instinct wouldn't be on there. Showing my support and wanting to see the competition grow for the right reasons of what I said is how it's supposed to work, and that is what Nintendo, Sony, and Microsoft want from all of us. If we are going to see competition grow the right way, as well as acknowledging and respecting all the competitors in the video game race, I'm going to tell you this right here and now. This must stop. You cannot attach yourself to someone like Angry Joe because of him with his rants and fanboyism of his preferred platforms, because this is only preventing your will from making your own choices, as you are allowed to agree and disagree. When Egoraptor said that Super Castlevania 4 was a very ungraceful sequel, I don't agree with his opinion, as you shouldn't let someone so popular make their opinions feel like it's the absolute truth, because it usually isn't. Why some people like Angry Joe is still relevant is way beyond me, and I find it hard to believe that there are some websites that give him too much credit, as they really shouldn't be around the gaming community on YouTube anymore. I'm also going to go off the topic and say that anyone has the right to voice their own opinions or rants on particular topics, but those topics have to make sense in order for them to be justifiable points. If you want to rant at Nintendo for them not embracing online for more of their first-party content, that's fine. If you want to rant at Sony for their arrogant attitude with how Andrew Fullhouse is being the next Don Matrick and how they have been handling the PlayStation Now service, that's also fine. If you want to rant at Microsoft for not trying hard enough to get a lot of Japanese support onto their Xbox consoles, that's fine too. Stuff like that has to make sense on why they haven't done things that haven't met up for today's standards, not on stuff like why a console is better over the other. Lashing out at each other for stuff like sales, install base, and other crap is also coward talk, just like how some third-party companies, such as Ubisoft, are toward Nintendo, because it's also the same thing when it comes to the senseless fanboy war where one group believes that they are truly right over the other. Nobody is right on those topics, as you shouldn't even think of stuff like that and start talking about things on what a company can do to improve their platforms or what to bring for their next generation hardware. Whenever I hear from fanboys of Nintendo, Sony, and Microsoft, they just tell us that they are fine and they have done nothing wrong. But I have bad news for you guys. They have made a lot of mistakes. Nintendo had the Virtual Boy and the proposed Vitality sensor. Sony had PlayStation Move and their upcoming PlayStation Now service. And Microsoft had the Kinect and the poor handling of the Red Ring of Death issues on the Xbox 360. And guess what? They even had some bad blood who ran those companies too. Nintendo had the late Hiroshi Yamauchi and Howard Lincoln. Sony had Ken Kutaragi, Jack Tretton, and now with Andrew House. And Microsoft had Steve Ballmer and Don Matrick. They were people who were doing more wrong than right, as each of them did so many bad things that didn't bring the video game industry in a more positive light as what it should be right now. People like Satoru Iwata, Shuhei Yoshida, and Phil Spencer should not even be chastised for trying to do better because nobody is perfect, as they are not the bane of the industry. It's the die-hard fanboys of all three sides, and from those who really make bad decisions like third parties. My final message to you all is that we as the gaming community must think for the better as gamers, because this pointless battle between sides defending a piece of plastic over the other only makes gaming's evolution far worse than anything that could overtop that. Why should we disrespect any side where there are those from Nintendo, Microsoft, and Sony who are trying their damnedest to make gaming's evolution better just as we want it to? It makes no sense. Cut the bull, grow up, and start acting more like a gamer, because you aren't considered one if you continue to feel that your favorite piece of plastic or company is perfect, because they aren't. We are gamers. We always have been, and we should act better than where things have gotten us to this point. Make sure you rate this video as well as leaving your positive and negative feedback down in the comments. Also be sure to hit that subscribe button underneath the video, as more support from you guys means that more content is coming from me in the future that you won't find anywhere else. From the bottom of my heart, this is RRPG signing out by saying Godspeed and game on, gamers. Have a good one.
You